All right, everybody. You ready to dive in?
Ready when you are.
Because we are talking all about public speaking today, and you know I love this stuff.
Me too. And you've brought some really fascinating sources to the table for this one.
We've got insights from Tony Robbins, Simon Sinek, even a Stanford professor who really knows how to break down those communication barriers.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so cool about this deep dive. It's
Yeah.
like, forget everything you thought you knew about public speaking, because
Easily.
these sources, they all point to this fundamental shift in perspective.
Okay, I am intrigued. What's the shift?
It's not about us and our nerves, it's about them,
Them being.
the audience.
Oh, the audience, right, of course.
It's about approaching public speaking with this, like, giving mentality.
Giving mentality. You know, I hear that a lot,
Yeah.
but I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels a little vague.
Right.
Like, what does that actually mean when you're standing up on stage?
So both Sinek and Robbins actually talk about this, and they really hammer home this point about shifting the focus from yourself, the speaker,
Yeah.
to the audience. And think about it.
Oh.
Have you ever been to one of those presentations,
Oh, yeah.
where you can practically feel the speaker's desperation to impress or to sell something?
Ugh, yes. It's like they just rehearsed it a million times in front of a mirror, and they're just trying to get it over with.
Exactly. And it's so off-putting.
It is. Those buy my thing vibes are like the fastest way to kill the mood in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
And Sinek actually says that we're hardwired to sniff out selfish motives.
Really?
Yeah. He says it's a survival mechanism from way, way back.
Like evolutionary.
Exactly. We can sense when someone is just trying to take something from us, whether it's our money, our time, even just our attention.
That's wild. So a giving mentality then means going into it, like really wanting to give something to the audience.
Exactly. So instead of asking yourself, what can I get out of this? It's what can I offer these people? Like, what do I have that can truly benefit them in some way?
I like that.
And you know what's interesting? Sinek himself actually identifies as an introvert.
Wait, seriously.
Yeah.
The start with why guy gets nervous speaking.
It's true. He talks about it. He's learned to work with it, right?
That is fascinating.
And one of his tactics is to find those champions in the audience.
Oh, I like that. Okay, yeah.
The ones who are really engaged, nodding along, making eye contact. And he kind of uses their energy to fuel his own. He creates this ripple effect.
That's a really, really smart strategy because it's so true. Like when you're speaking and you can kind of feel that energy from somebody, even if everybody else is doing this, just at a blank stare.
Totally.
It can really change how you feel about
He
it.
changes everything.
So speaking of smart strategies,
Yeah.
you found this awesome YouTube channel called Motivation 2 Study. And let me tell you guys,
Oh, it's a gold mine.
this thing is full of practical public speaking advice.
The best part is it's so clear and actionable.
Yes.
And they have this framework, the 3 A's: authenticity, awareness, and audacity.
All right. So starting with authenticity then, tell me everything. I know you love the speaker's advice on figuring out your own style before you ask other people what they think.
Yes. Because it can be so tempting, right? To go straight to your friends, colleagues, whoever, for feedback.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Especially when it's something high stakes. It's so easy to get stuck in that feedback loop.
Oh, totally. And he tells this story about prepping for his first TEDx talk.
Okay.
And he's like going back and forth between using PowerPoint or not, getting advice from everyone under the sun, watching a million TED Talks.
Oh, yeah, I feel that. Analysis paralysis is real, man.
And here's the kicker. He realized in all of that, he hadn't even stopped to ask himself what felt right for him.
Oof, yeah.
And his message,
That's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? It's like trying to wear everybody else's clothes
Yeah.
before you've even looked in the mirror and been like, what do I want to wear?
It's such a good point. And I think that's what I love so much about that point.
Yeah.
It's all about trusting your gut, right? Letting your authentic self shine through.
Love that. So authenticity is number one.
Yeah.
What about awareness? What does that look like when we're talking about public speaking?
Okay, so this is where situational awareness becomes absolutely crucial.
Okay.
And this speaker, he had this experience in Sioux Falls, South Dakota that perfectly illustrates this.
Okay. Set the scene for me.
All right, so picture this. He's about to give this high-energy, motivational talk, right? He's all prepped.
Yeah.
He's expecting a room full of, like, eager professionals ready to soak it all in.
I'm picturing it. Okay. What happened?
So he gets there and walks into a full-blown party.
No way.
Open bar, music's blaring, definitely not the audience he was expecting.
Oh my gosh, I would panic.
Right. But here's where That awareness that we're talking about, that ability to read the room and adapt, absolutely essential.
So what did he do? Did he just, like, join the party?
He basically did. He starts by addressing the elephant in the room, makes this self-deprecating joke about someone asking him, "Are you sure about speaking in Sioux Falls?"
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Implying that, it's not exactly known for wild nightlife.
So he totally owned the situation.
He owned it, and the crowd loved it.
See, that's what I love about public speaking.
Yeah.
Like, when it goes right,
Yes.
it's like this magic trick
Yes, yes.
where you're taking this potentially disastrous situation
Totally.
and turning it into a connection point.
And that's the power of awareness. Being present, reading the room, and, not being afraid to go off script.
Love it. Okay, we've got authenticity, awareness,
Bring on the audacity.
audacity, all right.
I know, right? It's got that ring to it.
It does. It's gold.
It is.
It's fearless.
It is.
It's like that's what we want to bring to the stage.
Yes, it's about embracing those, what if
Yeah.
moments, right? Taking risks, pushing past your comfort zone,
Yes. Yeah.
and really letting your authentic self shine through, even when it feels scary.
Because it can be scary, I think, for a lot of us. And I'm putting myself in this group too.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the time, what trips us up is that fear of judgment, right? That fear of, oh, what if I mess up?
Hey, what if they don't like me?
Yes. How does audacity help us overcome that?
It's not so much about overcoming that fear
Okay.
as it is about reframing it.
Okay.
Because the speaker was saying, he's like, our fears, especially about public speaking, he's like, they can actually be signals that we're on to something meaningful. Like, they show us what matters to us, what we're passionate about.
Okay.
And audacity is about harnessing that energy and using it to fuel our message.
So it's not about getting rid of the nerves. It's just like almost using them,
Exactly. Because you're never really going to get rid of them, right?
Right.
It's more about how do we work with them
Totally.
instead of letting them kind of take over,
And I think some of the most engaging speakers, the ones that I love to watch,
Yes.
are the ones who are willing to be a little bit vulnerable.
Absolutely. It's about being real, right? Showing up as your true self, quirks and all. And
Yeah.
one of the most powerful ways to do that
Sure.
is through storytelling.
Storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because he had some pretty interesting things to say about that too, about how powerful that can be.
Oh, yeah. And he had some data to back it up.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know that studies have shown that TED Talks that incorporate storytelling are way more likely to go viral?
Like, how much more likely are we talking?
85%.
Okay, well,
85% of viral TED Talks are story-centric.
that's a statistic.
Yeah.
That speaks for itself, honestly.
Right.
So if you want your message to stick, if you want people to remember it,
Yeah.
tell a story.
And he said something, it was like, never tell a story without making a point, but never make a point without telling a story.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
I'll write it down.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The giving mentality, authenticity, awareness, audacity.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this Stanford lecture you found. Think fast, talk smart, which honestly, the title alone
Right.
makes me feel like I need to up my game.
Yeah, this one is all about those moments, right?
Okay.
When you're put on the spot, you need to think quickly on your feet.
Oh, I know those moments.
Yes, and this professor, he starts off with this exercise,
Okay.
and it really highlights how even the smartest people can get tripped up by the simplest things.
Okay, hit me with it. What's the exercise?
Okay, so it's called the of exercise, and it's deceptively simple.
The of exercise.
You ready?
Yeah. Okay, so you have to count the number of FS in this sentence.
Very
Sounds
cool.
easy enough, right?
Yeah, how hard can it be? Bring it on.
All right, so the sentence is, finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. Count those FS.
Okay, I'm counting. 4.
Most people say 4.
Oh, no.
But look again. Pay attention to each word.
Oh, I see it. The of. S. There are 6.
6. You got it there. The of, I would never.
I know, right? But it's like,
I totally glossed over those.
our brains do that. They gloss over the little things. But the point is, just like in public speaking,
Okay, yeah,
those details matter.
they do.
It's all those little things we might not even think about.
Right.
Word choice, pauses, even just our body language.
Yeah, totally.
All of that plays a role in how our message is received.
Of the little things add up.
They do. Now,
Yeah.
can we talk about managing anxiety for a second? Because
That's the thing. For me, I think the nerves are the biggest hurdle.
I hear you, and you're definitely not alone.
Okay, good.
Because he actually kicks off this whole section, the professor, with a really reassuring statistic. 85% of people experience nervousness when they're speaking in public.
Wait, 85%? So it's like almost everybody.
Almost everybody.
Okay. Knowing that makes me feel a little bit better.
Right, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
And actually, he says it's not about eliminating anxiety altogether.
Really?
He's like, a little bit of nervousness can actually be helpful.
Helpful. How
It gives us energy. It
And
can
again-
help us focus. And honestly, it shows that we care about what we're saying.
That's true, because if you're not nervous at all, it's like, do you even care?
Exactly. The key is not like getting rid of those butterflies altogether. It's more about how do we manage them.
Okay, yeah. How do we manage them?
So he talks about 3 techniques.
Okay.
The first one is deceptively simple. It's called greeting anxiety,
Greeting it like, hey, anxiety, what's up?
basically. So instead of being like, oh, no, these nerves again,
Yeah.
it's more about like, hey, I see you. Thanks for showing up. Now let's do this thing.
So it's about acknowledging it.
Yes. Acknowledging it rather than trying to fight it.
Interesting. What's number 2?
So the second one focuses on reframing the situation. So
Oh.
instead of seeing it as this high pressure performance,
Yeah.
he wants us to think about it more as a conversation.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because it's less formal, right?
Yeah.
It's like more
Yeah.
connecting.
Exactly. And he talks about like making eye contact with people in the audience, using inclusive language, even just asking questions to make it more interactive if that's appropriate for the setting,
Right.
whatever you can do to make it feel less like you're up on a stage.
Yeah, less preachy.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay, what about the third one?
This one's all about being present.
Being present. Okay.
So staying grounded in the moment rather than getting lost in your head about,
Yeah.
what might go wrong or like replaying past mistakes.
Totally.
He gave this example of a speaker who actually does 100 push-ups before every talk.
100 push-ups. That's intense.
I know, right?
Yeah.
To get into that present focused headspace. I don't know if I'd recommend that to everyone, but
Yeah, I think I'll stick to my pre-show breathing exercise. But I like the idea of like some kind of physical activity.
he also talked about using tongue twisters, which I thought was kind of fun.
Oh, tongue twisters. Yeah. Get those nerves out.
Exactly. It's like a fun way to warm up your voice, but also you have to be so present to get them right.
Okay, that's good.
Right.
All right, so we've got our techniques for thinking fast, talking smart, even under pressure.
Yeah.
What about Jordan Peterson? Because I'm really fascinated to hear about his take on all of this because I love his work.
Yes. He brings up a really interesting perspective, and he uses this very vivid metaphor
Okay.
to describe the process of finding the right words. He compares it to navigating a swamp.
A swamp. Okay,
right.
that's a new one.
It's so perfect, though,
Yeah.
because he's like, think about it. When we're trying to articulate
Yeah.
complex thoughts, things we care deeply about,
Okay.
it can feel like you're wading through murky water.
It totally does.
You take a step, you hit an obstacle, maybe you have to backtrack, find a new path.
That is such a good analogy because how many times have you been in a conversation and you're like, ugh, I just can't find the words.
All the time. Or like you start down one path and then you're like, nope, that's not quite it.
It's so true.
So just like navigating a swamp, it takes time, it takes practice.
So how do we get better at it?
He really believes that articulation is a skill, not a talent.
Okay, so anybody can learn it.
Yeah. It's something that we hone through practice, through pushing ourselves to get better at expressing what we really mean.
And is there anything specific that he recommends for like building that articulation muscle?
Oh, yeah. He's a huge advocate for reading great writers,
Okay.
Really pay attention to how they use language, how they evoke emotion, how they take these complex ideas and make them so clear and compelling.
Yeah, it's like studying the masters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, writing,
Oh, of course.
he's like, there's no better way to strengthen your relationship with language.
Right, because it makes you slow down.
Yeah.
It makes you think about, okay, what's the best way to say this?
Totally.
Instead of just whatever comes out, in the moment.
And actually, he brings up Joe Rogan.
Okay.
And he talks about how Rogan's success as an interviewer, really comes down to this genuine curiosity and his ability to, like, really listen to people.
Which is so rare these days.
It's so rare. Everyone wants to be heard, right?
Right.
But very few people actually want to listen.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And that is something I've noticed, too, about the best communicators.
Yeah.
It's not just about them talking. It's about them asking questions and, like you said, really listening to the answers.
It's about creating that space, for genuine dialogue.
Yes. Okay, so we've got to talk about Tony Robbins.
Hmm.
What did he bring to the table? Because I love Tony Robbins. He's
Me too. And he actually gets real about some of the more like destructive patterns in communication.
okay.
Things that can actually sabotage our relationships.
Okay.
And he calls this the cancer track.
The cancer track, all
It's
right.
powerful imagery, right?
It is. It's like it makes you pay attention.
Yeah, it's like these negative communication habits that can creep in, and they might seem like small things, but over time, they can really do some damage.
So it's like this slow burn, right?
Exactly.
Where you don't even realize it's happening until like the damage is done.
And he actually outlines these steps in this downward spiral.
Okay.
It often starts with blame, either blaming ourselves or blaming others, right? And then that blame turns into justification,
Okay.
where we start rationalizing our own behavior.
Yeah, well, they did this, so I did that.
Exactly.
It's like a tit for tat kind of thing.
And it just creates this defensive dynamic, where it's almost impossible to have a productive conversation.
It's like you're building walls instead of bridges.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then from there, we move into complaining.
Oh, yeah.
We start venting to anyone who will listen about how we've been wronged. And then eventually comes the withdrawal.
Yeah, the silent treatment, the shutting down.
Exactly. And that's when you have that real disconnect.
And he's saying that ultimately hurts us more than anyone else.
It does. It creates all this stress, resentment, and it's so lonely, right?
It is for everybody involved. So
Yeah.
how do we break free from that?
So Robbins, his antidote to this cancer track
Yeah.
is so simple, yet so hard,
Yeah.
He's like, choose to see the best in people,
Even when it's hard.
especially when it's hard.
Because that's, I think, where it really matters.
Exactly.
When it would be so easy to just give in to that anger or that resentment, that's when you really got to dig deep.
He's like, decide who that person is in your heart, and focus on those positive qualities.
But it doesn't mean that you just like let people walk all over you.
No, not at all. He's like, we can still set boundaries. We can still address hurtful behavior, but we do it from this place of believing
Okay.
that the other person is capable of change, that their intentions are good.
It's about separating the behavior from the person.
Ex-
Because we all mess up, we all make mistakes, but that doesn't mean we're bad people.
Exactly. And he even suggests this physical exercise, which I love.
Okay.
He's like, put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and imagine sending positive energy to this person.
That's so Tony Robbins, but I love it.
So cheesy.
But you know what? I'm here for it.
Me too.
Because it's that reminder that we have a choice, We can choose blame and judgment,
Yeah.
or we can choose understanding and compassion.
And that's a really powerful place to come from,
It is. It is. Wow, this has been a lot.
I know, right?
A lot of information.
Well, good stuff, though.
Really good stuff. So what's the one thing, if you had to pick just one thing?
Oh, that's hard.
I know. There's so much.
But I think if I had to pick just one thing, it would be that shift in perspective from how can I be a better public speaker to how can I be a better communicator?
That's good. So it's less about like the mechanics of public speaking and more about
Yeah.
just connecting with people.
Exactly. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right?
It is. It's about building those relationships, building that trust, and like you said, approaching every interaction as an opportunity to connect and to grow.
That's beautiful. Well, this has been an incredible conversation.
It really has so much good stuff here. So for our listener out there, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
What resonated with you? What are you going to put into practice this week?
Let's keep the conversation going.
Yes. All right. Until next time, keep practicing, keep those conversations flowing, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Yeah, it's so true. Like sometimes I feel like I'm like trapped in my own head, trying to sound smart.
Yeah.
And I forget to actually listen.
It's so easy to do that, though,
It is.
especially when you're nervous.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
But that's what makes those great communicators so great. They can kind of like quiet their own minds and really tune into what the other person is saying.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The importance of a giving mentality, the power of storytelling, thinking on your feet. Like we've got all these tools in our toolkit now.
Right. So much good stuff.
Let's talk about Tony Robbins.
Okay.
Because you found this clip where he talks about these like destructive patterns in communication, which honestly kind of scary, but also I think we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he uses this really powerful metaphor to describe it. He calls it the cancer track. And it's basically, it's like these negative communication habits that can creep into our relationships. And you might not even realize it's happening. But over time, it can really eat away at that foundation of trust and connection.
The cancer track. Okay, so what are some of like, the warning signs that we might be on this track, that we might be engaging in these habits?
He actually outlines a few key steps in this downward spiral, and it often starts with blame.
Okay.
So either blaming ourselves or pointing the finger at others, right?
Right.
And then that blame kind of morphs into justification,
Oh, yeah.
where we're like, okay, well, they did this, so I did that.
Yeah, it's like that tit for tat.
Exactly. We're just coming up with excuses for why we're right and the other person's wrong, and it just creates this like very defensive dynamic.
Where nobody can take responsibility because everybody's just trying to protect themselves.
Exactly. And it's exhausting.
Oh, it is. And it's like, what's the point, you know?
Totally. And then usually from there, we move into complaining.
Oh, yeah.
We start venting to anyone who will listen about how we've been wronged. And then it usually escalates into withdrawal.
The silent treatment.
Silent treatment, exactly.
Yeah.
Shutting down, not communicating at all.
And he's saying that all of that, like this whole pattern,
Yeah.
ultimately hurts us more than anyone else.
It does. It creates stress, resentment, loneliness,
So how do we get off this track? Like once we realize, okay, I'm doing this,
Yeah.
I'm engaging in these behaviors, how do we turn it around?
So Robbins, his antidote to this cancer track is so simple, but in practice, it can be so challenging.
What is it?
He says we have to choose to see the best in people,
Even when it's hard,
especially when it's hard.
because that's when it really matters, right?
Right, because it would be so easy to just give in to that anger and resentment and judgment. But he's saying, like, we have to dig deep and decide, okay, who is this person in my heart? And really try to focus on those positive qualities.
But it doesn't mean that you just like become a doormat and let people walk all over you.
No, absolutely not. He's not saying we should condone bad behavior or let ourselves be mistreated. It's more about, like, shifting that internal dialogue.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can still set boundaries. We can still address the behavior, but we do it from this place of, like, fundamental respect and understanding.
It's about remembering that, like, we're all human, we all make mistakes.
Right. And we all have the capacity to grow and change.
I like that. This has been amazing, honestly. There's so much here to unpack.
I know, right?
I feel like people could listen to this 3 times and still get something new out of it every single time.
Totally.
But if you had to pick, like the one thing, the biggest takeaway from this whole deep dive, what would it be?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that communication is not just about the words we say, right?
It's about the energy behind it.
It's about the energy we bring to the table. It's about the intentions that are driving our words.
Yeah.
It's about that genuine desire to connect with another human being and build bridges of understanding.
So good. So well said, honestly. You've given us so much to think about today.
Thank you.
And listener, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Tell us what you learned. Tell us what resonated with you. And we will see you on the next deep dive.